it's kind of a long story, but the process that I had was that I was very inspired by the idea of creating a display typeface that serves, I guess, a social purpose. And I think I found, that it was kind of like, especially because if you put it in context, I was thinking, directly after the Lebanese protests that were happening in October of 2020, and after the Beirut blast, and after COVID. So there were a lot of political tensions that were happening at the time. And I already explained to you how I was very inspired by the graffiti that was on the walls of Beirut at the time with all of their different messages. So I guess the purpose was to create something that would um, voice the concerns of people. And there were a couple things that inspired me. One of them was the series of printmaking, screen printing that was happening during the Beirut protests. So there were a lot of type designers and designers in general, يعني Lebanese designers like Christian Sarkis, Khajag, Apollyon, and lots of other Wa'el Mar'ous. So these are very important, like, well-known type designers for the Arabic script. And a lot of them created these lettering pieces in support for the protests that were happening during the Thawra in Beirut. And so what happened was that there was a small studio called Nice Nice Prints. It's defunct now; they don't exist anymore. But they opened up like a stall for screen printing, to screen print basically these messages on T-shirts. They told protesters, bring your T-shirts, bring anything that you want to screen print on. And they were using these like very elaborate lettering pieces to screen print on like protesters' T-shirts. So that was one thing that was very inspiring to me, is how design can be used for, protest, how design can be used to represent, the voice of the people. That's in terms of like locally. Internationally, I was very inspired by Jonathan Barnbrook. Specifically, I was inspired by his Type Foundry virus. If you read his manifesto, it really explains a lot how I view typefaces, typefaces that kind of subvert or create a message, I guess, through the letter forms, which is something that I always found interesting, because how can you, let a typeface speak for itself? It's supposed to, a typeface or a font is a representation of language, and so it really should not be saying much, but it does in many ways. Like if you think of Helvetica, um, it's the most like basic neutral sans serif grotesque out there, but it says something about neutrality of the Swiss masalan, or like the era of modernity, when it was like simplification to the masks, minimalism, etc. So I was inspired by that, and I was also very inspired by the idea of mutable and variable typefaces. So this is where the idea of stacking the typeface and giving access to people came about. So basically, mutable typefaces are typefaces that give a designer multiple ways to typeset the same message. فمثلا there could be multiple designs for the letter A, and then when you press A multiple times, you get multiple designs for the same letter. So when you're typing, it's almost as if you're not typing the same font somehow, or you're typing the same font but you're getting so much variability to the point where it doesn't even seem like a font. Some examples of this kind of design for a typeface is a typeface called the History, which was also one inspiration. I don't remember the designer's name, but basically it's based on off a certain skeleton, and then each letter is a different design. But it gives off this vibe of like it's almost like an anti-design sort of typeface. very displayish and very fun. Like, it's, even if someone is a non-designer, you could still create something super fun with it because it's already super intricate and well designed. So this was something that was part of the thought process. Of course, another thing that inspired me were the political posters from AUB, um, and Zena Maasri's Off the Wall. It's a book that archives all of the political posters of Lebanon and Syria and Palestine from the 1960s till the 1980s. It's a very interesting book, if you know it. And it basically details like every single poster that was created, at least that is within certain archives that exist in Lebanon, because in Lebanon ما في كتير archival, so I guess that also gives you a limited amount of inspiration. But yeah, like I used her archive the most, and the AUB archive, which is my university. And actually I found the poster from the AUB archive. I saw it in person. It's a huge poster, like an A2 poster, the original. But the artist is unnamed. Basically, I used the poster and the lettering in the poster as a skeleton to develop the typeface. But in terms of thought, like if I had to think in terms of like concept, when I first began my final year project, I was thinking typeface and politics in Lebanon, and I wanted to merge the two. And I was very inspired by postmodernism, deconstruction, the idea of merging like avant-garde radical thought with experimental type design. So again, like extremely inspired by people like Jonathan Barnbrook Masalan, who are very like, and his foundry is basically built on his politics and his views of the world. So there was one typeface that also of his that I've also found very inspiring, which I think was called Newspeak, which is inspired by George Orwell's, I don't know if you've ever read it, 1984. And in the book, in the novel, there's a language that is created that doesn't allow people to speak freely, and there are limited words, few words that don't exist. Like for example, you can't really like I don't exactly remember what kind of words don't exist, but it's a limited dictionary of words, like so people can't say what they're actually thinking. And the typeface was inspired by that idea. So he has very interesting projects, and I think he was my like biggest inspiration in terms of like conceptually speaking كيف كنت عم فكر. Am I satisfied with the results? هلا هو the thing is إنه the typeface, technically speaking, isn't fully done because I have the character set of the main typeface, but this is a font. This is a variable font. And so I have the design of like the different sets of characters that stack on top of one another for people to use, but I don't have them actually designed. It was more of a concept because I had 3 months to finalize the typeface, and obviously I was new to designing type, so I never designed the typeface before. So it was kind of a learning process as well as a final year project. In terms of satisfaction, I feel like, when I was before I was presenting my project to my, the jury, and I was anxious صراحة because I felt like there was so much missing. I had so much left to do. But then my advisor told me one thing that kind of sticks with me right now is that, a type design and designing type, it's never like خلاص it's done, like there's never, I think there's not even like a single body of work that you feel إنه خلاص خلصت, now it's perfect. You're always gonna find something to do unless there's like a very tight deadline and a client that's like nagging you. If it's like a personal work, you'll never be satisfied because it's personal work. يعني ما في deadline, ما في إنه حدا قاعد فوق راسك عم بقولك إنه هلا لازم هيك تكون وهلا. This is your own idea and concept. So I feel like I did something. Like I feel like I did create the thing that I wanted to create, but I feel like it's not done. So it didn't serve its purpose yet. Like, I feel like it could serve its purpose if it's done, if it's published, which I hope it would be. And if it's out there for people to use freely. Ideally, it would be a free font, maybe on a website where people can create their own posters, or, I have a couple of ideas in mind for that, but this is a later project that I'm planning on maybe finalizing later on in life. Honestly, I don't know if I'm the right person to ask this question, because I feel like there are so many more people who are more into type than me. يعني أنا no, I'm very interested in type, but I'm not a fully fledged type designer. I work in graphic design right now for the past 2 years, so my work has been extremely commercial, which I don't enjoy, but no, this is the reality of work here. Like, no, if you don't have the money to be your own kind of client and to do whatever you want, you have to work commercially for a couple years, and it's good experience, but no, it's not really like this extremely experimental work where you kind of play around and do whatever you want, and etc etc. Like every single job out there, it's very client based. You do what the client wants. So in commercially speaking, I feel like there's, I guess, a little bit of an appreciation to Arabic more than before. And I guess for Lebanon, it's a specific case that there's always this move towards English. There's always, يعني, I guess we always, as a country, we always preferred design to be in Latin for some reason. And so Arabic design to us, you know, to Lebanese people generally, if they see something in Arabic, it automatically gives it this like tinge of, they're not Western, so they're not expensive, so they're not, I guess, good enough. And I feel like slowly the stereotype is going away, and I see that with some of the projects that I've been working on in my job as well, where people are asking for Arabic and they want to work in Arabic, which is crazy because a couple years ago, if you said بدي أعمل logo بالعربي, like most designers would straight up refuse. They'd say, why would you do that? And usually the Arabic logos are only confined to the Arab Gulf, where, if a Saudi, for example, a company wants a logo, you have to create it in Arabic because it's Saudi and they prefer all of their logos up front to be in Arabic. That's a whole other conversation. But yeah, in Lebanon, there's like a boom in typography, specifically in Arabic typography. Latin has always been super like out there, but Arabic now, it's much more, people are interested in Arabic. They're seeing it as this cool, experimental lettering thing where you can do many things. They're kind of falling in love with it, which is beautiful to see, because Arabic is a beautiful script, and it's much more, to me, it's richer than Latin, though I haven't really worked in English or Latin type design. But like, it's just more fun. It's more, I guess, just you have the capacity to create something new, which in Latin is a little bit difficult because there's so much done already. In Arabic, it almost feels like if you try something new, it's instantly new, لأنه there's not a lot of experimentation out there. And I think that's the one thing that made me want to experiment with the typeface that I created. It almost felt like all of the Arabic typefaces were somewhat adaptations of English English typefaces. So في عندك مثلا graphic Arabic, which is an adaptation of graphic Latin. You have Ping Arabic, which is, an adaptation of Ping Latin. IBM Arabic. You get the point, like a lot of the most famous and most used fonts in Arabic are you know, in some way transliterations of English typefaces. But to create something that is like freshly Arabic, just Arabic, and it's not the classic calligraphy, it's this display typeface. It's different. So yeah, and I'm hopeful that there will be a bigger impact. Because does it have a real impact on the society or culture? I'm telling you, yes, I think, because once you kind of, I mean, Arabic is the national language of Lebanon. مع إنه we use a lot of English, we use a lot of French, but Arabic is the national language. So for it to gain traction, it says a lot about national identity and whether for good or bad, So I do think it has an impact. I just don't know how and if it's a good thing or a bad thing. You know what I mean? And how it depends on how it's used, I guess. What is next for me? I'm going for a master's degree in late August. I'm going to Cal Arts, and I'm going to study critical theory in aesthetics and politics. So it's a research master's degree, and I'm hoping to kind of combine my love for, sociology and politics with my love for design and design history. Maybe create like a design history course in Lebanon to focus on, these designers that were not taught. A lot of the education of design in the Arab world is extremely Western. You learn about Bauhaus, you learn about Grand Fury and like these amazing designers from the West, but you rarely learn about, I don't know, Salwa Rawda or Kamil Hawa or whoever, these amazing Lebanese artists and calligraphers and designers who have dedicated so much of their lives into bettering the visual culture and bettering the, what's out there in the, a lot of the vernacular that we're used to in Lebanon is from these people, and yet we don't learn about them in university. I would love to kind of bring that into design education in the Arab world, create something that is, an Arab design history course, and to focus on it alongside, Western design waves and artistic waves and whatnot.